Welcome to another episode of Women Lifting Women, a podcast dedicated to female voices in leadership and tech. I'm Emma Russ. I'm the host of the show, and today I'm joined by Cristy. I'm saying it wrong. Correct me, and I don't know why I'm horrible at names, but Cristy. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited to have you. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Emma. I'm so excited to be here. What a great podcast to be a part of. My name is Cristy Garcia. I'm the CMO of Impact.com, the leading partnership management platform. We offer technology to brands that are interested in influencer marketing, affiliate marketing, partnerships with other brands. And we provide a marketplace. We provide the tracking, the reporting, and even payments can be sent through the platform. So very exciting company and business to be a part of. I've been with the company for around 6 years, and prior to that, I've been in technology for about 20 years. So had a really diverse background of tech companies, but very happy to be in sort of a MarTech, marketing tech environment now.
Very exciting. I have also a really random background in different techs, though I'm on the data side of advertising right now, which is also interesting.
It is.
To be in, especially currently, but yeah, like you somehow have multiple lives within these roles, and like you move from one technology to another. I think we also learn from it, but yeah.
I agree. Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, I'll kick us off with my favorite questions, and I think that's a really great entry point of what is your superpower? Being a woman in this tech, in this industry, in the tech industry, in this environment, what do you think is the power that we have or you have?
So I think that women in general, and then they bring different talents to the table. Some of the research that I've read indicates that women, and I find myself being more empathetic than not. Women are also known as long-term strategic thinkers, which again, something that I sort of identify with. And women are actually, and this is all according to research, not just my own opinion, but women are actually better at connecting with others, more likely to think creatively and cultivate stronger workplace relationships. So when you think about a marketing leader, which I am, it's important to be creative, right? Marketing works cross-functionally, and it needs cross-functional support more than most other departments, I would say. Empathy is incredibly important, and not just retaining your team, but also in understanding human behavior. Like, how can you know what a consumer will do or think if you're not able to identify with them and empathize with them in their situation? But that's another marketing skill that really can't be overlooked. So I may be biased, but I think having a woman as a marketing leader will bring about different strategies, communication styles, and a lot of advantages. And I believe that I bring that to the table as well.
I really like that, especially empathy in advertising. I think we are just on a panel in Cannes, and we talked about, or one of the panelists kind of mentioned that one of the things that they're exploring within the agency side is empathetic marketing.
Sure.
And how do you connect to people? And my own research, and I was working my previous job, I did a lot of research and how you change behaviors, how do you basically what motivates people. And you see that a lot of decision making is very emotional. Surprisingly emotional, right? All the figures, all the numbers, we think we're really rational. We're not as human beings. So empathetic marketing, I think, is a really powerful skill. Any anecdotes that you can remember that's really successful, like, you know what, where empathy really powered you through?
Yeah, I think I can say from like a management perspective, I've been fortunate to retain 100% of my team for 5 years. So I feel like a lot of that is based on the fact that the team has now come together and they're gelling and they're really working well. But I also think that there's a level of trust that exists on the team where people feel safe to bring up problems and other points of view. And I think that really stems from having empathy as a core competency in your leadership, because you inspire other people to be empathetic and to think a little differently. So in that way, I think it has helped me. It's also helped me in marketing because, quite honestly, you have these personas, right? This is like the core marketing, and you're supposed to understand these people and put yourself into their shoes. And if you can associate that with a person that you know, or if you can associate that with a type of person you've met in the past, maybe, then you're able to fully understand it in a way that other people can't. And so I think that's part of the value. What motivates human behavior? Why do people buy? Why do people not buy? Why do people listen to recommendations from their friends more than they pay attention to advertisements? Like, these are all interesting points that we have to figure out, right? But as empathetic leaders, you kind of maintain that sort of that mindset that you're not in it for yourself. You're in it, as part of a team, and exactly who you're targeting because you've paid attention and you've studied and you've kind of learned what drives behavior. So anyway, that I think it's just a very underrated skill. And I've seen more articles recently coming out that talks about how it's an underrated skill. And I'm glad to see that because I think it's something we should be talking about more.
I mean, I think we will. And I think, as you said, especially as marketeers, it's extremely valuable. And I'm glad to see more people talk about empathetic marketing or empathetic, like, what does it mean? How do you do better storytelling?
Yes.
I think that's the core in many things, all media, advertising included. Storytelling needs to draw, like, that's how we connect.
Definitely.
And that's just fascinating to see.
Yeah, I agree.
Talking about storytelling, every story needs kind of like some ups and downs. So I'm going to ask you about some challenges.
Okay.
And what have you felt to be like one of the biggest challenges that you had to face, and maybe what they taught you, how you came on the other side stronger?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there's a lot of challenges, I would say, but I began working, and this, other people might identify with this, but I began working in a time where there was no Me Too, and there wasn't a heavy focus on making women's experiences more pleasant. I'm very happy to see that much more now, but 20 years ago, I can say that was not a prominent message. And so I think that I was affected by bias throughout my career without even knowing. The biggest, and I had to study and learn about them, but the biggest one that affected me is what they call the likability respect double bind. So this means women may be seen as too likable, but because they're likable, they're not seen as powerful. If you're too authoritative, you're seen as cold and lacking warmth. This is the double bind that women in the workforce face, right? You're either too soft or too tough, but you're rarely just right. So how I learned to identify that, I learned to identify bias and call people on it. I don't think people intentionally have these biases or want to have these biases, and we all have them. But calling them out and saying, look, like, I feel like maybe you're not understanding, my skills because, potentially I don't come off as a hard, kind of this type of person. But I think letting people see that, and that you can have both sides of you and you deserve to be likable and respected, and you can be both, I think is part of it. But the other thing I've learned is how to identify bias in myself, right? Because we all have biases, and this double bind likability respect issue, it exists in me too. When I see a woman kind of stand up and she's assertive and she's talking, almost like a man's language, I kind of look at her and I think, wow, like, she must be really good at her job. And I don't know why I think that. Like, it's a horrible thing to think. You just assume someone, because the way that they maybe are very direct or authoritative, that means that they're really good at their job. And maybe someone who's more making jokes and likable and kind of like quiet or empathetic, like, maybe you don't see them as driven. And so once I identified that there's a potential bias in myself, I'm able to see it now when it happens to others, and being able to call it out, I think, is really important.
I mean, there is something there, and also in terms of charisma or anything else. Like, if you can, even entering a room and owning a conversation, that's a different skill. Say that I had to, because I started my career in a very male-dominated field, I did adopt some male traits, which I'm now deciding what I like and don't like. Because some of it becomes part of me, and that's all right. We talk about it in the house a lot. You don't have to be, my partner has a bit more feminine traits to him, and I sometimes have a bit more masculine traits to myself. Sure. And it's all right that he's a bit more feminine in some areas and I'm a bit more masculine in other areas, and we complement each other. And it doesn't mean that I have to be all feminine and he has to be all masculine.
Right.
Like the other way around. And it's finding that gray zone but it's also, I don't know how you found it, calling people out on those biases, I found to be extremely difficult.
Yeah.
Because the moment that you try to put that mirror, it's very painful for them to see.
It is.
And therefore they lash out. At least that's been somewhat my experience.
Yes, you have to be very careful in calling it out. I think when you see and you hear people talking is when you're able to kind of chime into the conversation. So an example would be if you hear a leader in your company talking about a woman being like bitchy or authoritative, or somebody who's this or that. It's a very binary way to look at a person. And I think just calling that out to say like, yeah, they might be that way at work, but they're not really like that in their personal life. And in fact, they're incredibly warm and all of these things. Or even if you don't know the person, to say like, that's like a very closed-minded thing to say. Like you're judging somebody based or how they are or what type of person they are based on how they talk or one interaction with them. And I think when you say that in a way that's not accusatory, that can be more like as guidance to say like, be careful what you say about this, like, and here's the reasons why. I think people do identify, like they might not like to hear it, but they do listen, and it can't change the way that they think going forward.
That's reassuring to hear. And I'll try that. I think it's just like, as you said, it is about how you say it and when you say it and finding the right moments to say it. And fortunately or unfortunately, we do still have to be careful. It's kind of like, how do you tell someone that they might be like calling someone racist? You can't really do that, right?
You don't do it in front of a group. That's the first thing. You can pull someone aside and just say, hey, I just wanted to let you know this was, I thought, a little off color, and it bothered me because of these reasons, or however you would confront any problem, I think is the way to do it. Because you're right, like who wants to be embarrassed in front of a group of people or called out or being called or labeled something that they don't identify with? I totally agree with you. So it's all in the delivery
situation, their mindset. I don't know. I think that's definitely something, an art to practice, and definitely something I will continue working on.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, we're all striving for improvement all the time. That's growth, right?
All the time. Yes.
Talking about that, I mean, role models and mentors. And one of the reasons why I really appreciate role models and mentors also with the mentorship program we launched earlier this year is thinking, how do you get inspired? What makes people feel inspired? I wanted to see if you can share some of your examples of your role models and mentors and what they have taught you and why that was so meaningful for you.
Yeah. So one of the things that's interesting about my background is I've been fortunate to have a number of strong and successful women that I've looked up to over the course of my career. To name a few, Melissa Feemster, who was my direct manager at a company called Linkshare, now known as Rakuten Advertising. She believed in me at a time where I was still figuring myself out, figuring out what my strengths were as a marketer, figuring out how to become a leader for the first time of a big group, and just the encouragement and how courageous she was really inspired me to be strong and to be like her in a lot of ways. So that's one. Kate Castle, Michelle Denman. There's several others, but I've learned something from each of them. They're all shrewd, business people who have successfully navigated a man's workplace and ended up on top. And I listen to how assertive they are when they speak and how they command attention, but how emotionally intelligent they are at the same time. And many times I'm sort of looking at them and asking for advice on things like work-life balance and how they deal with difficult people in difficult situations. So I think having that female companion that's close, that's a mentor to you, that can help bring you up and guide you through your career is so critical. And I wish that everyone had one, or at least someone that they could look up to say, yes, that's the type of person that I want to become, or they have these great skills that I want to emulate and learn from. So it's been critical for me.
That's first, it's wonderful, and it's always really inspiring to hear and to see. Do you feel like there's something about female mentors rather than, for example, male mentors, just because of how much you can relate or that similarity factor. We need to see people that are successful, that look like us, that are like us, in order to connect and believe that we can do it as well.
I think there's something to that, but I also think that women face challenges in a lot of cases that men don't, and those challenges can actually bond you together to learn from each other of how you dealt with it. Like the bias question, like how do you call somebody out on that? Like the question around, am I being just, do you think that this is a bias? Like here's the situation that I'm facing. And I think that having a woman as a mentor has been important to me. Although I know there are plenty of male marketing leaders who I talk to on a regular basis, and they inspire me like crazy. One is Mike Volpe, who used to be the CMO of HubSpot. He's now taken on several board advisor roles and things like that. But I've seen some really great marketing and great mentorship coming from men as well. But for me, it's been helpful to have females in my life.
I think you're right. I think in the end of the day, in terms of unique challenges and unique things like, am I crazy? Like, or is this like, I think that's the question. I'm like, am I just like, it feels off, but is it in my head? And I think women ask it more than men, maybe. And maybe because we're taught to like, oh no, you're just imagining it. And we are now starting to ask, I don't like, almost feel like, I don't think it's in my head.
No.
But I've been told it's in my head for so long. I no longer, I need like a second or third opinion, like a doctor.
Exactly. He nailed it. That's exactly how I think about it. What about you? Have you had a lot of female or male mentors in your career?
I had more male mentors and female mentors, unfortunately. And I think that something is changing now. Partially through this program. So as I interview amazing women, I feel like I'm the one who learns the most. So I'm like really fortunate. So I created myself this opportunity, which is great. And I have a lot of support through it. And the reason maybe, well, when I started started in cybersecurity, there are very few women in that space. And I was quite young. And they hired me because I spoke Chinese, and I survived because I do math. And like, it was kind of like a random combination.
Wow.
Stuff. It makes you tough. And whatever it does, whatever else it does, it teaches you, it makes you very tough. That's when I said, I've learned some male mannerism. And yes, and to this day, I still drink whiskey and smoke cigars. But you know what? I learned to love my cigars and whiskey. So that part I will keep. The rest of it, I am trying to change, but some of the challenges that you mentioned, to acknowledge myself, I'm very assertive. That's one of the things I've learned first, like go into a room of 50, 40 people, all twice my age were roughly, or at least significantly senior, and command a room and like, this is how I do things and we're going to do it my way. But it's also embracing the fact that my team, like, people can cry and people can be, I don't know, feel the way that they feel, and you can still understand where they're coming from and relate. And just being tough for the sake of toughness, or like, and not understanding where people are coming from, is not inspiring. And it also doesn't really solve the problem. Just telling people that they're wrong without offering any solutions or any understanding of where is it coming from? How do we solve this? How do we go together? How do we make you stronger, bigger, better? For me, that's not really leadership. So it is finding that balance.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. That's great.
I mean, it's a journey, though I am definitely so inspired by this type of conversations.
Me too. It's nice to talk to other women, and to me, there's like, I think it is the challenges, but it's also just knowing that women can be and have been successful, like navigating challenges, like, and we're all going to deal with challenges, whether they're biases or self-inflicted challenges or otherwise. And just being able to have someone who's gone through it, male or female, I think is really important, to get that other opinion. Like you said, like in your head, you've believed something for so long that now you need to go get a second or third opinion. Like, I really relate to that. And I think it's important to ask that question. Am I crazy? Like, is this normal? Is this weird? Like, and it's hard to ask certain people that, you know, when you have a level of comfortability and identification and sort of camaraderie with somebody, it makes it a little easier, you know, and that's where mentorship comes in.
Definitely. And I literally would interview people, and like, I remember requesting that everyone will send me a writing sample. And this men said, "Oh, you can look me up on Google." I was like, well, you're applying for a job. Like telling me that I can go and find you, it's great, but
Oh,
that
God.
sounds like I will be like, you will expect me to work for you rather than you work for me. So like, how about we don't do that?
That's
Or
crazy.
send me the chapter you think is most relevant. Curation is key here.
Yes.
So I think that's where I was like, this feels like a weird reaction.
Yes.
I'm like, and men don't see it necessarily, so I'll ask a guy, like, that was weird. And I was like, perfectly normal. Yeah,
No, it wasn't.
perfectly
No.
normal.
No, it wasn't.
No. So I'm like, okay, this feels odd, but all right, whatever.
Yeah.
Leadership. You've had quite a few leadership roles. You're now leading a team that managed to keep with you for 5 years. That's bloody impressive. Sorry for the language. But that's really impressive, especially in the current climate. Really kudos to you.
Thank you.
What do you think as a leader is your responsibility for representation? How do different leaders need to think about representation?
Yeah. So I think representation is critical. When you don't have diversity in your organization, you won't attract diverse candidates to your organization, and then you miss out. In fact, you miss out on revenue. There's been plenty of studies that have shown different types of people are going to bring different talents and different skill sets, and by eliminating certain groups, you're really not getting the optimization that you could be getting, and you're also sending a pretty horrible message to the team that does work for you. So I think that there's that, but I don't think that anybody really wants to see fewer women in leadership consciously. But because there are fewer women, some women can become competitive because, in quotes, like, there can only be one. I think as a leader, you need to lift other women up with you. That's your responsibility, and don't fall victim to that competitive mindset. Cheer other women on, make them feel special in front of their peers, talk favorably about them behind closed doors. These are things I view to be my responsibility as a woman first, but as a leader next. And that's just the minimum, in my mind. Offering yourself to be a mentor, to send that really great work email that you need to send to other women in the organization to inspire them, and being an inspiration, being a role model, and taking that really seriously. I think those are all things that are really important for representation.
I agree. I mean, I think that a myth that we've been told, and we've been told that by men, that there's only room for one exceptional woman. Why?
Exactly.
If there could be so many men, why there's only room for one woman? So, and I think that's kind of like where women got this whole catty, like, these are all myths that were created.
Exactly.
It's propaganda.
It's propaganda. It's to keep us down. Yeah.
Exactly. Sorry, it sounds like I'm like trying to promote some sort of a weird conspiracy theories, but I think it's real, and I stick to it. And it does feel like, oh, women are competitive, and like, men are competitive. It's across board. I don't think there is anything and any reason why a woman need to be more competitive against another woman versus if you're competitive, equalize it. You want to be the best, don't bring people down. And there's also a difference between pushing yourself up versus bringing people down. And whenever you feel discontent when you're in the world, there's two approaches. Literally, we just talked about it yesterday here. Me and my partner do have these conversations often. So there's two approaches when you come to this kind of challenges. You can either choose, I'm not as great. I want to be further in life. You can either work on yourself or try to bring other down.
Exactly.
And like, the second one will not make you any happier.
No.
It will never make you any happier. So I don't know. Just compare yourself to yourself. You'll thank yourself later. Yeah. Which leads me to the last question. Last question is, what tip do you wish that you knew earlier? You will thank yourself later in your career journey. Is there anything that I wish I knew that when I was like just starting out?
Yes, definitely. So many things, actually. one that sticks with me and that I'd like to share is the best thing that I've heard is that, Cristy, you are borrowing your title. It doesn't belong to you. So don't let your job or career define you. Just as easily as you were given that title can be given to someone else. So this reminds me that there is more to life than work. I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a mom, I'm an aunt, I'm an artist, and then I'm a CMO, right? But I can be replaced and this title can be given to someone else at any time. So it also reminds me to work hard to deserve the title every day, but to keep that in mind, that there's more to this than just climbing the ladder and getting to the top and owning this title that you think is very glamorous or will give you this confidence or this, cater to your ego or whatever it is. It won't help you. Like at the end of the day, you have to remember that that's not yours, and working and neglecting other things in your life is not the right way to do it.
I think that's first a really, really good advice. I cannot say that I always followed it. And I definitely was a workaholic, though there are a few things to balance me out. One, my dog, who's currently sleeping over here, and it was in Cannes last week. I don't know. There's a lot of people that know Aurora, and she's my service dog. We're talking about representation. I do make sure she's on stage with me. So everyone will see it now, and I'm very open about the whole what is it like, why do I do it, what was my journey about, and making sure that people know that regardless of, you can have a service dog or need a service dog and still have loads of responsibility, and
sure, of course,
yeah, and it doesn't really cripple you, not really. I think that what I found with titles is you will define your title in some ways. So it's something, it's so innate. People will, whatever my title could be sometimes, what my actual work is, I'm not saying it's not, you should not be recognized or should not be, but a lot of the time people will see you regardless of sometimes what is on paper.
Yeah.
You should also get the paper, but there's something more innate in that. The artist part, I'm very curious. I would love to hear more of your art.
Thank you. Yes, I'm a budding jewelry maker. So I started during COVID, and now it's a hobby that I've turned into a side hustle, I guess. So it's fun. It allows me to be creative in ways that I think I was more creative coming up as a marketer. When you get to a certain level, it's a lot more numbers and market data and all sorts of things. You're maybe not being as creative as you were in the past. At least for me, it's not. So this fits that for me. This is my creative outlet.
Oh, that's fantastic. I actually have it with film. So my partner is a film director, and we're just releasing our first film together in the next couple of months. So it's kind of like my creative outlet and place for me to play around and be
amazing.
Do things different. So I completely understand the need. I think I've been painting my whole life. So if I don't do something also with my hands, I kind of lose it. I've been known to start folding cranes or origami during meetings. And there is actually bets sometimes of how many I will fold in a single meeting. Just
so funny. That's great. I know it keeps your mind busy. It keeps your hands busy. You can still focus. I think that's lovely. I love some of your art.
We will share. And if anyone wants, you can also share that. Kind of support for starting artists. Definitely something you should do. So I would love to see some of the jewelry. And that's really good. I don't know. Good to see that you found that balance and you find room to give yourself the outlet you need. That's also super healthy.
Yeah, thank you. It took some time. But
yeah, same here. Long story, but for another time. And with this, we're concluding. Join me all, please, for thanking Cristy for joining me today. This has been a wonderful episode. I had loads of fun. I hope that you had fun, and listener as well. For the full episode and many others, go to www.womenliftingwomen.io, and until next time.